Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm your host, Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio News, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to this week's show. It's our weekly roundtable of stories that are making headlines, and this week we're talking sports, and what better time to do it because there's so much going on in sports this week. Our guests this week, and I'll start to my far right, Mike Misico from the Kalkask Leader, sports editor there. Mike, thanks for coming in.
Hey, no problem, Bill. Nice to be here.
Appreciate you joining us. And coming back for a second time, Mike Eckert from the Traverse City Record Eagle.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, good to have you. And James Cook, also from the Record Eagle.
Thanks.
Sports writers, guys. Good to have everyone here. We've been planning this show for a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks ago, we said, well, let's look ahead and let's do another sports show because it's been a while. And it turns out this really is maybe one of the best weeks we could have chosen to do it. Right. There's just a heck of a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the most recent news, which is the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Mike, give me your take on it. Nobody got into the Hall this year.
Look, I'm not happy with it personally. I think somebody's got to be in. There's a handful of guys, in my opinion, that should be in there because you look back to that era, the steroid era, we could have thousands of guys that were doing this, and Bonds is the greatest hitter of all time, in my opinion. He should be there. Like I say, there's a few other guys should be there. Whether you want to put an asterisk in Cooperstown, more power to you, but these guys should be there, in my opinion. It's unfortunate that nobody's getting in this year.
We got a lot of big names. We've got Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire.
Roger Clemens. One of the top pitchers the game has ever seen. And was it because of steroids? But you got to look even before technically the steroid era. These guys were still some of the most dominant players, in the game to that point. So in my opinion, if everybody was doing it, let them all in.
Mike, how do you feel?
I kind of take the other side of it, where baseball is the one sport where the Hall of Fame means something, where it's so based in tradition and there's a prestige to it. And this steroid era, it's impossible to tell who cheated, who didn't. That people did, and to me, they've already set the precedent. They won't let Pete Rose in because he gambled. They didn't like what he did. If you cross this line, you're not in there. Well, now you've got this era. I think there's going to be a lot of years like this where nobody gets in because you don't know who did, who didn't. Look at a guy like Curt Schilling, who only gets 30% of the votes this week. I think a lot of it's because people don't know what he did. He had some great seasons, he had some good numbers, but was it legit? Was it not? And so you just leave him off.
A lot of caution there. James, how about you?
Maybe we could test the bloody sock. I'm kind of split on this. I mean, it is the Hall of Fame, and there's not many people that are too much more famous than Barry Bonds, in terms of baseball and stuff like that. So I can see both sides. I can see why the writers are hesitant to vote these guys in. But on the other hand, it's like Bonds, Sosa, McGwire, all these guys. It's like, they're all up in the top 10 in all-time home runs. It's a little hard to kind of leave them out and everything. I'm a little torn on this one. Yeah,
and I know they get 15 years of eligibility on the ballot if I'm right on that. Will Barry Bonds be the next Pete Rose, the guy that just never gets in, even though he should by most accounts?
It's almost looking that way, but with these guys, there's not. This was uncharted territory. So, like Pete Rose, you're banned for life. That's it. These guys, they're still eligible. They're still lingering around. Maybe this will. I don't think it's ever going to blow over or ever going to go away for them. But perhaps down the road, this will quell a little bit, and maybe at some point they will eventually get in.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with it too is they give them that 5-year window for a reason. Anyone that was eligible for the Hall of Fame this year had to have sat out the last 5 years to give you kind of that window to put it in perspective.
Right.
Well, the problem with this era is that 5-year window wasn't long enough. We need more of a window to really let the dust settle. I mean,
we're still in court and the grand juries.
Exactly. We don't know who all was using, who wasn't. I think when the dust settles years down the road, you're going to see these guys in the Hall of Fame eventually. It's going to take more time to really let the dust settle, let the hurt go away from all of this. And, once you get one in, then you'll get another one in, and it's kind of going to snowball. But
Well, I was going to ask, are we going to see, McGwire come up first and then Bonds, or are we going to have this epiphany in the 10th year where we say, okay, now all is forgiven, and we can launch Bonds and McGwire and Clemens all in together? Talk about a great year that could be.
Yeah, you could just have a steroid wing of the Hall of Fame.
That's what
just
I'm saying.
Put them all in 1 year.
Why not? Why not? These guys, steroids or not, many of these guys on that list elevated the sport to another level, albeit by the use of steroids. But you got the home run king, you got one of the best pitchers of all time, a couple of the best hitters of all time. To me, it just seems like they have to be there. That was an era, a point in time in this game, and majority of these people were doing this, and it's unfortunate, but they should be in there for that time period.
I just wonder if it's what it's going to take to make this happen, if it's going to be some other Hall of Famers who are already in the Hall to say, you know what, we were doing this a long time before that, or someone else to come out and say, Mark McGwire was one of 23 guys on the team who was doing this. Is it going to take something of that magnitude maybe to bring this out? And
yeah, you've already kind of seen that with the players, that when, you had some of the Yankees that came out and said, yep, we did this. And it kind of lessens the blow a little bit when you hear people admitting to it. And so I think you're right. That would be the best way to get those guys that didn't get in this week, would be to have a current Hall of Famer or a guy get in the next year or two and admit it, that, yep, they did it. A lot of people did. I think once you get a couple of those stories out there, it kind of lessens the blow and makes it easier to accept.
Let's
and you kind of realize too that these guys did what they did kind of on an even playing field, because so many guys then were on steroids that it was an even playing field to an extent.
Bonds was facing a
pitcher who was also juiced.
Pitcher.
Yeah.
Good question. What about the slight? Is it a slight for Jack Morris of the Tigers, and Alan Trammell also on the list, obviously further down? But give me your quick take on those two guys. And you kind of alluded to it at the beginning there. I would love to see, if nobody meets that 75%, at least one person has to get in, whoever the top vote getter is that year.
I think that would be fair, but then obviously, where is that line drawn? But Jack Morris, hey, look what he did for the Tigers. Like I said earlier, I'm a little surprised he was even up that high, but I think, was it Mike that mentioned maybe a reason why there? But again, in my opinion, I like to see him there. I like to see some of our Tigers heroes, flirting with that, and good for him.
What do you think the possible reason is for Jack Morris?
He's one of the ones when you read about him, he's a really polarizing one, because he was good over a 20-year career. He was never, he had a couple of great moments, but he was never considered like the best pitcher in baseball during his time. And so then you wonder, do you blame that on there were just really good pitchers at that time? Is it just he wasn't a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher? I think people are torn on it, and from what I've read, the voters that are pushing for him, there's the ones that haven't been are adamant about it, and so he's in an interesting spot now where he's got one more shot at it.
Right.
This is going to be his 15th year coming up. He's got 1 year to get. He was at, I think, about 68%. He's got to get up to 75%. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Jack Morris campaigning to try and get that final push.
Possible.
And if you're seeing still next year more of the people refusing to vote for the Bonds and the McGwires and the Clemens, you could see that. You could see Biggio get in and everything like that. I think Morris is deserving to get in. I mean, the guy's got 2 World Series rings, and not only was he just on the teams that won the World Series, I mean, he was a guy who was winning playoff games, winning World Series games in dominant fashion in those runs and everything. So I think he deserves to be in there. And I think Trammell and Whitaker, I think, will eventually get in on the Veterans Committee.
Good point. They get how many votes do they get? They get to at least to pick 1 or 2 a year, or?
Yeah, the Veterans Committee basically just gets to pick people that they thought should be in that didn't get voted in, and it'd be cool if they put Trammell and Whitaker in the same year.
Oh, that would be cool. That'd be cool. I could talk about baseball for the whole half hour, but let's move on to another topic of the week, and that's the NHL. The lockout is over. The season is saved, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Are the fans lost? Have we ruined it for them?
You know, they are. Look, it boils down to this. They're lucky they survived. Their last lockout was in 2004. They lost an entire season, and when this happened, it couldn't have come at a worse time, in my opinion. They made a record amount in revenue last year, and then perhaps that's why this happened as well. But it was just bad timing. To lose this much of the season is bad. Now, if they would have lost an entire season, I think, in my opinion, it would have been catastrophic for the NHL. We would have seen teams fold like dominoes. It was like the NFL's lockout. You know, we're going to come back. As angry as we are always going to come crawling back. The NHL is lucky. Now, I still think we're going to see some damage done because of this, but eventually they'll come back to where they were. In my opinion, they're still in the bowels of the professional sporting world. They're back where they were behind the NBA. So that's my take.
You know, it's real ironic that this kind of coincides with the Baseball Hall of Fame talk, because here you had baseball 20 years ago with their strike, and then it's not that they, push steroids, but they kind of turn their blind eye to let all these power hitters and these big numbers to attract attention, get fans back after the strike. Now they're seeing the repercussions of it. You wonder what the NHL is going to do now. Here you've had two work stoppages in the last 10 years. You've lost a lot of the general public. You will always have that passionate hockey fan base, but that's not going to cut it. How are you going to attract the young kids, the just general public to watch your games? And then what are the repercussions going to be 20 years from now? Are we going to be having the same kind of talks like we are with baseball? If they pull the wrong kind of move, you could see that, but they're really going to have to do something. I mean, the world's gone on without hockey for a while here, and as much as the hockey base has missed it, right, I don't know if the general public has.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sure a lot of the loyal fans are just been kind of down for the last couple months, but I haven't really heard a peep about it from anybody. It doesn't seem to me like anybody's really missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's generally quite a bit of outrage. I mean, the people that were into hockey are upset. They'll probably be back and everything like that. But there's just kind of an apathy among the other sports fans who were just sort of hockey fans. They would watch it when it was on and stuff like that. And they're going to lose a big share of those people. And like Mike said, it'll be interesting to see how the NHL treats this. I mean, the MLB, let the drug thing go on. What's the NHL going to do? There's a big push now for trying to limit concussions and trying to limit fighting in hockey. And do you do that right when you're trying to draw people in, trying to get people back? I don't think they can.
That's what brings us to the hockey arena.
Right. It's like NASCAR without crashes.
Weird as it is, exactly. Well, look, and what's the deal with these lockouts, man? It seems like it's the thing to do. The NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, was it 94? Mm-hmm. Their last strike. They are lucky to have survived that, and we're talking MLB, like you talked about, the sport with deep roots in American history. It took them maybe 10 years to recover, and they did that only because they are baseball, as American as apple pie. Hockey is Canadian as, Canadian bacon. So are they going to be lucky? Is it going to take 20 years? Is it going to take 10 years? I don't know. I think they're going to have an uphill battle here, and they better do something to keep people interested right now.
Yeah, and you've got and a steroid problem helped baseball. I mean, the home run race between Bonds and Sosa, or McGwire and Sosa.
If you didn't enjoy
draw
that,
a lot of
you
people
didn't
back.
have a pulse. That was great for them.
What's the NHL got to do like that? I mean, you've got the NHL's poster boy has a concussion problem.
They're in trouble.
From here. What is and obviously there's an impact on center ice in Traverse City. Lots of hundreds of thousands of dollars lost from training camp. But what do you see as there's other sports stories that are kind of tied to this, whether it's a boost in kids going to play at center ice or Howe Arena, but the economic impact too. There's a lot more to this story.
Yeah, I think one of the big pieces of it was the high schools. The West and Central were going to go down to play at the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
They were going to have a couple weeks worth of games at Comerica Park, and that got canceled. They ended up just playing here in town. And you'd like to think that next year they'll come back and they'll do everything the way they had planned with the Winter Classic at the big house and all of these high school games. But you feel bad for those seniors on this year's Central West teams that this was their shot to do it, and they'll be gone next year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, West has a fairly young team, but Central has 11 seniors on that team that aren't going to get to do that. And it looks like they are going to be able to do it next year, and Cadillac is going to too. But that's something that's lost for
For a lot of folks.
almost half of Central's team.
And getting back to that, look at the revenue generated simply with the Red Wings training camp coming here.
Right.
Every year. It's a huge deal. That's gone. I don't know what the numbers are there, the impact would be or what it is, but still that's a lot of revenue lost for our city. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, with the Wings camp and the Prospects camp and all
Right.
that, and the golf tournament that they do here and stuff like that, they said it's about 15% of Center Ice's revenue for the year.
That's a big hit.
And the Prospects tournament is huge for the resort and stuff like that. I mean, you've got 8 teams bringing 30, 40, 50 of their other players plus personnel and everything like that. I heard it's like $250,000 that the resort lost from not having the Red Wings and the Prospects camp here.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a big impact. Well, let's go from one depressing topic to the other. Briefly, let's talk about the Pistons. We've got a lot more season left to talk about the Pistons, so I don't want to dwell on them too much. But gosh, slow start out of the gate, huh, Mike?
Yeah, I don't see it all as doom and gloom though. They're not that far out of a playoff berth, as crazy as that could be. They're only 4 or 5 games back, and it hasn't been great, but they've shown signs. They've got a young core that Drummond's been really impressive so far, and you watch him and you think, wow, this is going to be our guy that we build around for the next decade. So yeah, you'd like to see a few more wins, but I think there's positive signs to be taken from what we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. Mike?
Can we get Billups back? Maybe bring Dennis Rodman out of retirement. I don't know. I was the biggest Joe Dumars fan that walked the earth. When I played basketball, I used to carry a picture of Dumars in my sock. As weird as that was, his player card. And I wanted to shoot like him. I wanted to be like him, the rainbows from the corner. Did I do that? No, I was horrible. But anyways, I idolize this guy. To watch how he's still there is beyond me, just on his name alone, I guess, and what he's done. He's done great things for the city. He's done great things for this organization, but he's made some bonehead personnel moves. And Mike, you're right. There's talent there, but holy cow, we're lacking in a lot of areas. They've come along here in recent weeks. They beat the Heat over the Christmas break, I think that was, and they've picked up some solid victories.
A couple of win streaks have been good, yeah.
But we're underperforming. Now, luckily, they play in an absolutely horrible division, in my opinion. So maybe there is a possibility we can sneak into the playoffs. If we can do that, perhaps Dumars will save his job. But we'll see. As of now, I'm burying my head in the sand with them.
All right. Real quickly, James, your take on the Pistons.
The point about Dumars is interesting because when they won the championships with Dumars, he was drafting horribly. Guys like Darko, and Rodney White and stuff like that, and making really good trades. And now he's gone the exact opposite. He's drafting well. He's getting guys like Drummond and Monroe and Brandon Knight and stuff like that. But he hasn't been able to make any good trades or anything like that. I mean, but you've got those 3 guys that are a pretty good core. Kyle Singer looks like a pretty solid pickup. You're probably going to get a lottery pick next year. So you're going to be picking in the top 10. You add a pretty good small forward to that lineup, and you've got at least probably a playoff team. Not necessarily an NBA title contender, but
right.
Somebody who's in the mix.
let's close out and talk a little bit about the NFL. Equally depressing, we go to the Lions. I don't know. How do you feel about their season, and is Jim Schwartz, are his days done?
I'm going to, after this, go home and cry for a little bit because I'm very sad
I do that
now.
frequently. But,
The Lions, I mean, you thought the Pistons were bad. Talk about underperforming. I've gone from denial to, you know, the fetal position with these guys crying on the floor. What went wrong? What happened? Schwartz,
week in, week out.
You know, to me, to make a long story short, it boils down to coaching. He's got virtually the same team as last year. What happened? They're underperforming, in my opinion, flat out, bad coaching. Now I think they need new ownership. I think they need a new general manager. I think they need to clean house from top to bottom that way. Player-wise, we've got the best receiver in the game. We've got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. We need a lot of help in the draft and defensively. Obviously, we got burned. But in my opinion, Schwartz should be gone. I think this boiled down to undercoaching.
He survived that Black Monday, which kind of surprised me. But does that mean he survives another year, or is it too soon to tell?
It looks like it, you know, and it looks like as of now his coordinators are all still around too. It's surprising because when you look at the team, it's not like they had an injury or two and that accounts for it. There are fundamental problems with this team, and whether it's with personnel or just attitudes and the way they handle themselves. It's tough because you really praise Schwartz for what he did when he came in. Here's a 0-16 team, and he put a swagger on the team. You know, he put that mentality that, you know, we're not going to be pushovers. We've got an edge. We've got an attitude, and that worked to get them to a certain point. And now that they've been there, that doesn't work anymore. And you don't like these guys, you know, getting the extra penalties and doing all this off the field stuff. And so you praise the guy on one hand, but on the other hand, times have changed. It's time for something new, something fresh.
I think part of the frustration too was so many games that we could have won or that we seemed to get close to. It's almost like we got our hopes up every week for about 45 minutes and then it was over. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think they only lost, one game all season by 10 points or more? Yeah. I mean, they were a couple plays away from every game. But, I mean, you talk about an extra 15-yard penalty here or an extra 5-yard false start there, you know, a late hit, all this kind of stuff, Schwartz throwing the flag at the wrong time, you know, and, you know, what could have this team have been? But they have discipline issues. They have, you know, coaching issues, certainly, I think. I mean, how do you regress from 10-6 to 4-12 with the same players? I mean, they returned 21 out of 22 starters on both sides of the ball.
It's culture.
You lost 6 wins.
This is the culture of the Detroit Lions. We thought it was changing, but to quote a great legendary coach blowout moment, they are who we thought they were. The Lions are who we thought they were. And that's more like 4 and whatever. They're bad. I get angry about it.
I hesitate to ask our outlook for the next season, but let's close out with our talk about the rest of the NFL and just as we head into the playoffs here, what teams do you like as we get closer to the time for the Super Bowl? Any quick picks here?
I like New England, which the way I've been picking NFL games means they're done this week.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, Mike.
Who will they take on in the Super Bowl, you think?
Take your pick of any of them. You know what? I think Green Bay's kind of putting it together here at the right time. I like a Green Bay New England Super Bowl.
How about you?
I'm sticking with my pick here that I made a little while back. I do believe Seattle will face the Denver Mannings, the one-man show there in the Super Bowl. I think momentum is on Seattle's side. Russell Wilson's doing a phenomenal job. On the other, they're scoring points. They're doing everything right. They look great. On the other side, Peyton Manning. Holy cow! Maybe the Colts are kicking themselves for this one, but he looks as good as ever.
If not better.
If not better.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, we could see those two teams surprise the world.
James?
I like the Patriots as well, although I could definitely see the Broncos being in there. I think you'll see the NFC or the AFC title game be Denver against New England, and then either one of those teams could win that game.
I think
in the NFC, I'd like to see Green Bay and Seattle in the NFC Championship game as a replay of the Fail Mary game.
Right, destiny.
Okay. I'm with you on the Final Four, but I'm going to go Denver and Green Bay for the Super Bowl. Let's see if we can
All right, what do we got?
get that rematch.
Whoever loses this bet is buying dinner.
I don't know if I can afford that kind of a bet. But
Me either.
It's funny
unless we're going to Taco Bell or something.
that
but-
4 of us pick it and nobody takes the #1 team, which was Atlanta. But I think with their playoff history, you kind of look at it as you don't expect them to make a run here.
Everyone forgets about Atlanta, and it's always been wait till you see what they do in the playoffs all season. They're a great team. Wait till the playoffs. Wait till the playoffs. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with them.
Well, they have the easiest schedule in the NFL. They've got Matt Ryan, who's never won a playoff game. I mean, Russell Wilson has more playoff wins now than Matt Ryan does in his career, and he's a rookie. So with me, it's just a wait and see on the Falcons. They're a team that I'm not counting on anything from. If they surprise me, then fine. But they're kind of like Houston to me. I mean, I think Houston could do something, but I'm not going to count on it. And I wouldn't bet on it.
It's hard to.
Until it happens.
Lots of question marks up there. Hopefully we'll bring all you guys back at the end of the sports or football season, and we can talk about who owes who dinner, right?
I'll tell you what, if Seattle and Denver make the Super Bowl, I will buy you guys a value meal somewhere.
We'll remember that. All right, we got it on tape. All right, guys, I want to thank you all for joining us. Mike Misico from Kalkask Leader, Mike Eckert and James Cook from the Record Eagle. Guys, thanks so much. It's been fun to talk sports, and I appreciate everyone watching this week's edition of The Briefing Room. Hope you'll tune into the rebroadcast if you joined us late, or tune us in online as well. I'm Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio News, and we'll see you again next week right here.